Welcome, pudding people, to another episode of Everybody Loves Pudding. We're your hosts, Ken Seymour and Richard Geiger. Yay. Yeah. Insert applause, cat calls, all that sort of stuff.
We have the button.
We have the button. We just don't use it. It's canned people. It's a little sad.
Use the canned heat a little bit more.
Well, we are particularly excited today. Anytime we get an opportunity to do what we are doing, and that is to talk to a creator, somebody that's trying to put something new out into the world, especially an independent creator that doesn't have to kowtow to the big companies and decide that it's okay to let them change their ideas. They get to put it out in the world the way they want it to be. This is just a true joy. We are joined by D.P. Brown. Thank you for coming on the show with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm not on mute. Oh, I'm not on mute, am I?
No, not at all.
All right, that's all good. I see the mute on the screen and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm good. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate coming on. Ken and Rich. It's exciting to be here. Let's get down to brass tacks and talk about some good stuff.
Absolutely.
Pop comic culture.
So we met at the convention in Cleveland, Ohio, originally known as Wizard World and now known as Fan Expo. And I have to say it was a good year. It was kind of a nice resurgence. And I got particularly excited at seeing everybody being able to enjoy things again. Are you, before even you did this kind of comic book thing that you're doing now, were you a big person that went to a lot of the conventions, or is this more something new with your current project?
Well, okay, so I wouldn't say I went to a bunch of conventions or convention goer or whatever, but I have done conventions as a vendor or co-vendor, I should say. I have a podcast called Nerdcyclopedia that I did a couple conventions with a few years back, promoting that at Steel City in Pittsburgh. So I've been there mainly as vendors, but not so much as a consumer, just buying different stuff that the consumers do. But this is my first time actually being a vendor for myself in the Cleveland area, at least. I've been doing conventions at other places and everything like Pittsburgh and Baltimore and stuff. But as far as Cleveland just coming back from the Wizard from when they did it a couple years ago, from when they were Wizard World, this is the first convention I've had done for myself, as a solo vendor.
That's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, don't have to you was talking about in the intro and everything, kowtow to a publisher or a boss or whatever. I'm my own boss, doing what I have to do, what I say, and I do give myself that feedback and everything, and that flack and stuff. But the great thing about doing solo is that I get to move freely, on my own and everything, and actually I have my own, schedule. I don't have to wait on, another person and what have you. And not to say I didn't mind that, but it just gives you just a bit more freedom to act on your own, when you're solo.
From a marketing standpoint, or from self-promotion, or even just a revenue standpoint, what were your expectations going into this particular convention?
Well, I didn't know what to really expect from the Fan Expo convention. The Steel City Con in Pittsburgh was about 2 or 3 weeks before this one. So they actually do convention about 3 times a year, if you could believe that. 3 times a year they put on conventions at the Monroeville Convention Center. Now the center is smaller than the Huntington Convention Center in Cleveland. But the fact that they put on that many conventions and pack it in as much as they do is a wonderment to me, So coming into this, convention in Cleveland, I didn't really know what to expect. I was saying before, they haven't had one in a big one in a couple years. So, I just went into it calm, just, okay, whatever comes, just comes. I sort of get a little bit of anxiety when I do these conventions because, I'm selling my stuff now and not just, other, people's stuff. I'm selling my own stuff. So I got to meet the fans or meet potential customers that I can try to convert as to be fans. And trying to figure out how, I'm going to, do my pitches and, how comfortable I am in my pitches. So just doing this convention, I didn't really know what to expect, but it turned out as you go throughout the day, you get it more adjusted, the more you talk to people, and then throughout the weekend it just flies by.
I really like one thing, and this is kind of the only thing I'll touch in on that Fan Expo thing. I really like, and I bet Steel City does this too. They really reach out to the local community to be a big part of that show and to give it the flavor that it has and to show off what local talent can do. I mean, yeah, you go for some of the big names that come to these sorts of things, but the real treat often is being able to see the local people that can contribute, even to the extent that, like, when you're watching the panels for the celebrities that were there, the people that were doing the interviewing were local people.
Local. Yeah. I mean, that's really important because I mean, the local vendors and the community, the cosplay community is local. They come up to actually fill out the convention, make it actually a little bit more homey for the not only the consumers that that come to the convention, but the celebrities and everything too, because they want to make it feel like a hometown type of thing. And that was a good thing about Fan Expo. It's a few differences that I see that they could do better, but they have a really good start in coming back. So I expect next year to be a lot more smoother than it was this year.
So I guess I'll touch on the local connection a little bit more. When we were talking about doing the interview and I was looking up some of your information, like my brain wasn't functioning properly. And we've got DP Brown and then it's Dog Pound Brown, Cleveland. I was like, okay, like it didn't make sense, right? And then I saw a picture with the jersey on. I was like, oh my gosh, how dumb am I, right? So like okay, now everything comes together. But I want to know. Obviously, you've got it in your name that you're putting out there. What that kind of effect from that Cleveland fan base, particularly for the Browns, has, because there's been so many ups and downs, right? They were there, then they moved to Baltimore, and then now the team comes back, and now you've got the Tim Couch era, right? And then there's like I'm a Bears fan, so I know how like the bad football's been the last 40 years. I get it. I understand that. Right.
At least got a Super Bowl.
Well, that's true. That was, I mean, you can only go back so long before you can just quit preaching on the same thing. But I want to know what type of influence that has had on you as a content creator. And as you've gone through making these different projects in the podcast, like the nerd culture, even, like, because oftentimes the sports culture and the nerd culture don't go hand in hand. So how has that kind of, affected you going through the years?
That's a great question. That's actually a really good question, because I haven't had that type of question asked, and I've done dozens of interviews and stuff and everything. So I definitely appreciate that, Richard. First and foremost, I'm from Cleveland. And I'm a hardcore, diehard Cleveland Browns fan, first and foremost. So if you combine that with the fact that I love comics and stuff, I mean, to me, it just goes hand in hand. And the funny thing about you saying that that the sports and the pop nerd culture and everything doesn't really mix. If you're really into something as hard as you are, especially if you can't play sports or whatever, you're a nerd about it and everything. I love everything about, the Cleveland Browns, the Cavs, the Indians and everything. So, I'm a nerd about that type of stuff, as far as the players and the history and everything. So, if you want to relate, as far as like the nerd part about it, it is like a symmetry, between like the culture of the sports stuff and the culture of like the comic stuff. So as far as me being named, Dog Pound Brown, I mean, that is a representation of my love for the Cleveland Browns, because I'm, like I said, I'm just a diehard Browns fan and everything. And I'm becoming known throughout like the pop culture, comic community and everything as this Browns fan. And it's a branding thing too. It makes people remember you. People talk to a lot of people, a dozen times and everything, but I come back on interviews and everything. They remember the black guy with the cowboy hat with the glasses and the jersey, what I should have worn tonight, everything. But yeah, they remember that guy, So it's all calculated and everything. But I mean, that's just where my love comes from.
Well, there's a lot to love, especially when you are going to focus on something like the comic book and nerd culture. A lot of times that is germinated early in one's life. Did you get that early start in your love for comics, or was this something that you kind of came upon later?
So great question. So my dad, he got me into comics when I was like 5 years old. He bought me my first Spider-Man comic. I remember it was Scorpion on the cover. I can't remember the actual issue, but I do remember it was one of those like I think John Romita covers, from back in the day and everything. Nice. But he took me to a newsstand, and that just changed my life and everything. It was I think it was Lawson's in Cleveland. I used to go up to that corner store all the time to get my comics. And when I first discovered there was actually comic book stores, that totally just changed my life. I learned how to read through comics and everything. I learned the value of literacy through like, comics and stuff. So my love has been embedded with me, thankfully, from my dad. Way back when I was 5 and all the way up to like today. I would have never known this thing would have just stuck with me as long as it has, but it's just ingrained. It's something that just can't be removed from me. I mean, it's in my DNA and blood. I love everything about the colors, the artwork, the writing, anything about comics, the smell, you get that fresh comic smell and everything, coming into like a comic book store. I mean, it's just something that just moves me.
Well, I know we have a great love, especially for the local comic book store here in Bloomington, Indiana, called Vintage Phoenix.
Okay.
But talking to owners of comic book stores across the United States, many of them have the same kind of thought process in that, they're going to carry Marvel, they're going to carry DC, they're going to carry these big things, but the people that they tend to really like to promote are those that are going to create things in their own sort of way and have that kind of local community ties. Have you had a chance to really sink your private press into some local comic book shops? Have you managed to get it to start to spread out into the surrounding regions?
Yeah, that's my mission, for this year. So last year it was when I first started, making this comic, The Theme of Thieves, in a more of a printed, edition. I did my Kickstarter last May for the first issue, and then I did my second Kickstarter last December for the second issue, and gotten that out and everything earlier this year. And I've actually, done a few conventions to, just get the book out there to test it out, to see how it is with the fans and everything. And now my mission is to work it through like, comic shops and everything. So that is my aim and goal, for getting like the, Theme of Thieves out there. So yes, it will be in the comic book stores, this year.
Ooh. Oh, okay. So this is a little bit more of behind the scenes stuff, I guess you can say. So tell me about you searching for your print service, right? Like, tell me about who you had to go through to get the stuff on the paper, who created it and printed it, and like the order that you made, like that first order, like, yes, this is it. Like, tell me a little bit of some of those behind the scenes things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it took me about a couple years to, even come down with this concept and everything. It's been in my back of my, back of my head for like, a while. So every chance I got to take my phone and say, hey Siri, put down some ideas and everything for reminders and stuff, get them into like the script form, jot down ideas and, get onto the computer, get them in the script form, and then get it ready for, my artist, Dan Ekus, shout out to him, who does like all the artwork for, the Theme of Thieves. Once I got the story and everything down, before I got it to the artist, I actually put my script through like a workshop. Okay. Because I couldn't afford like an editor at the time. So I went to like a workshop group, which it consisted of like, 5 or 6 people who more or less was, does like novels and stuff. So my comic was like the first one they've done. And they critiqued it. They actually just tore it apart, and told me the things that they liked, the things that they didn't like, things I could improve on and everything. And it was just such valuable stuff for me, because they did say I was headed in like the right direction, because they liked the story and the concept, but it's some things I needed to, fine tune in order to get that out there. And one of the best things that they said to me was like, you shouldn't put this out as a whole graphic novel, because that was my intentions on doing that first. Split it up into chapters, because I had a whole thing written. I had at least about like 150 pages or something written. But they said, take it down, split it down, and then feed it to people that way to see how it is. And it's worked so far. So I hope to continue it that way. And then once I got it to like once I went through that, I got it to my artist. I met my artist in Pittsburgh at a Steel City Con. So we got together, and he liked my script and everything, and I liked his work. And I was searching artists all over Instagram and DeviantArt and everything to try to find the best one to fit my style, and just lucked up upon him. And it was a blessing that he was able to do sequential work, because it's not easy to find artists that actually does sequential work and actually want to continuously get paid for it. So I was blessed to find him. And then, I found my colorist in Mexico. I actually haven't met her yet in person, but we emailed and stuff back and forth all the time. I commissioned her to color my work, and also my letterer, Alex Zief, she does my coloring, and Marco Della Verde does my lettering and everything. So shout out to them. And then finally, once all that stuff is in the pot, they send me back everything, and I approve it. And, it's once it's to my satisfaction, then I try to choose a printer. And yes, I've had to choose a couple to choose from. I went with Comic Impressions, who was a really good recommendation from another group that in a Facebook group I'm in, and they've done like they've done a really good job on like the first issue and everything. So I was really happy about that. Once I got the copy back, of the work, I got super excited. It was like my first comic. I did like a video on it. You can see it on my YouTube channel. It was just a sight to see for me, because I was just so excited and so happy about it. So, in a roundabout way to answer your question, I mean, that was the a process all the way up into me getting to seeing that first print come off the printers.
Yeah, that had to be exciting. Just getting that box or envelope, if it was just a single episode, and just taking it real slow, just edging it out there, prolonging the joy that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So here's my question. So I'm creating something new. I'm putting myself in your shoes, and putting it out there. My first thing I think of is, okay, who is the first person I want to show this? So who was the first person you wanted to show your finished product to? And did they react the way you hoped they would?
First person I showed it to was my wife. I said, wife, I said, I finally did it. I told you I was going to do this. and she didn't believe. Well, it's not that she didn't believe me, but I've had like ideas and everything. I've done certain things before, but this was something I was extremely passionate about, and I told her the plan and everything, as far as how I was going to go about it, and finally it got done. And when the finished product was out there, I got it into my hands, babe. I done it. I did it. Here you go. Check it out. She got to see a lot of stuff before I actually sent it off to print, but to actually see a physically printed book, I mean, it was an exciting thing. So she was the first person that I let see the first issue there.
Well, it sounds like she was definitely the supportive kind of person that you needed to be, rather than like, what is it, Gabriel Iglesias that had I can't even do it right. Do it poor justice, but just that look that knows like, you didn't do anything. So that's good. I mean, I like that.
It takes a lot to put a creation together and everything. And I mean, you get nervous when you put your baby out. You make the food and everything, and you create it. And I'm not a woman, so I don't know how pregnancy is, and I don't know how to have a baby or whatever. But I felt like this was my baby coming out into the world, and for it to be judged at the end of the day. So you have that factor too. So I knew I had her support already and everything. But I also wanted her critical ear on what she thought of it and everything. And she gave me her honest opinion, and she thought it was good. Fortunately
that's
for
all
me,
you can hope for.
I feel like we spoke to somebody else who had their coloring done from someone in South America here.
The one that did the cookbook comic.
Oh yeah. To me, obviously that's something that couldn't have been done in realistic terms, maybe even 20 years ago. But now with technology the way it is, it's just like you can send it, they can do their work, and they can get it back to you. And it's just like the whole process of reviewing, editing, going back and forth, you're doing it across the world. To me, that's like, it's such an incredible concept.
Yeah. And the great thing about that is it opens your world up to many different people you can collaborate with. So you're not just looking in your local area or firm referrals and everything. If you search the internet enough, you're going to find something that you want, and hopefully that they can actually collaborate with you to get the work done. And like I said, I mean, I've had like some good fortune in this aspect and everything to get these get this work done by Dan and Alex and everything. So yeah, not even having to met her, and she doesn't really speak a ton of English and everything. The translations that come from the emails, the technology that comes from that to make her understand what I want. I mean, it's just amazing.
Now, I have to say one thing. When I was looking at the press materials that you gave me, and, I already had the impression when we talked, it's like, I think this is a dude that I could hang out with, have a drink. We get along pretty well. But then when you said, this is kind of inspired in a sort of way, back in the Quantum Leaps, like, okay, yeah, he's going to be my best friend, because that was my show back in the day, watching Scott Bakula not quite know where he was for half an hour. Yeah. Each week.
Yeah.
Well, network television, you have like 2 channels. Well, I had probably 5 channels, but to have that type of show, that's something that you could watch in regularity with, no DVR, maybe a VCR if you programmed it right and had enough tapes to be able to watch it. But that was one of the few shows that I tried to catch whenever it was on TV.
Was that one of your formative shows?
Oh man, that was appointment TV for me. I think it came on like 8 o'clock on NBC on Wednesday nights. I was there. As soon as I trying to figure, and the way they left off the episode in the cliffhanger where he was leaped into like another body, and they had like a different scenario, whole different type of scene and scenario that that he had to get into, and then he leaves off the episode. Oh boy. you know. That was just like, just that I was there next week. You had me coming back next week. So I mean, it was a very, very, I love Quantum Leap. I mean, that was one of my favorite shows.
I always love the chance. I mean, I love or hate, the cliffhanger end of any show or book, but just the way they would do that, the one that really got me when I go, it's like, oh, I really have to see that. I don't know if I want to see that one. The one that they did with the JFK assassination where he jumps into Lee Harvey Oswald's like, I don't know if I'm ready for this one.
Yeah.
Where exactly are you? What's the time here?
This could go really badly.
If that was the show that you were appointment television on, before, do you have something like that now?
Okay. I had that and Lost, and that was my like one of my other influences and everything. Game of Thrones was another one that was appointment TV for me. As of right now, I wouldn't say there's any like appointment television because it's just so much stuff out there to watch. You can binge you can binge and record stuff and watch it on your own time. So there's nothing really I can say that I have to be here at 9 o'clock, because so I won't have social media spoil it and everything, or like a certain time thing. But the last two I can think of just off the bat is Game of Thrones and Lost. I didn't want those. I had to be there at the time that they started, and because I didn't want it spoiled by, social media or my friends or what have you.
Yeah, I think I'm Better Call Saul on that one right now.
Well, and those are new, but even Game of Thrones at the time, there wasn't an HBO Max. There's an HBO Now that you could go look, but like it's wasn't the same where those things just popped up. And I felt like on Sunday nights, maybe for a while, it was The Walking Dead, and then you'd have The Walking Dead overlapping with Game of Thrones a lot of times. So that was probably that. You're right. That was for me probably the last one. I was like, well, it's Sunday, and now I've got to go at this particular time to watch these shows. And if you think about it, you're right. Everything, even if it's on a network, you can go to the app and watch it the next day. But you're right. You can't wait too long, or else it's going to get ruined.
Yeah, don't wait too long.
Some tweet's going to have just some word in it, or like some article's going to have a title to it. You don't even read the article; you just read the title. You're like, okay. It's worthless now. It's
frustrating some advertisement on the side or whatever, some extended article or whatever, spoiling it and everything. So yeah, I mean, it's just the way of technology and social media nowadays. Everybody wants to talk about something, and it's there to talk about. If it's pretty much on you. If you don't want to be spoiled, just don't go on social media.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And probably the thing that most people want to talk about right now more than anything is where we are on social media.
And there's the nonsensical.
I told you it's just going to be a random segue. Don't forget, Pudding People, to catch us on all of our social media to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of pudding. Where are you most active, Richard?
Well, you could see some of my activity on our Instagram account.
Would that happen to be at Pudding Guys?
That one would, yes.
Amazing. You know what? That is also our Facebook. So you can about once a month see if you're lucky. If you're lucky, we'll post something on Facebook. We're probably most on Twitter at Real Pudding Guys. But of course, you can catch us on Patreon as
Pudding Guys.
That's right. Where for just $1 a day, you can support us as we bring you new interviews, new material, new stuff to make our interviews and material look better. It's just fantastic for only $1 a month. Hey, Paul Teresa.
Not a lot.
No, not really.
It really isn't. That's actually $12 over the course of a year.
Right. Small change to help the Pudding Guys keep going. And we love our supporters. We look forward. Informative as always.
Always being the key word because it's always in the podcast.
That's right. So it's like our lunches, nutritious, delicious. Well, maybe not. Okay.
No,
that's stretching it just a little too much. All right. So we talked a little bit about the origins of how your comic was created and some of the process of putting it together and where you want it to be. But what about influences? Who influenced you most in the way that you look at pop culture and consume it, and the way that you want to create the stories that you create? Who do you think had the biggest impact on how you look at this?
Yeah, so my biggest my biggest three are Alan Moore, creator of Watchmen, and a dozen other legendary icon and everything. So shout out to him. Frank Miller, who did the Dark Knight Returns. As a youngin, those two comics were like the most indelible, like the most influential, most turnabout things that I can think of that made me think, that made me realize comics was much bigger than the superpower stuff that I used to read, the regular Batman, like, more adult type, content that you realize that comics can actually be with, like the Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen. I didn't really understand Watchmen a whole lot when I first initially read it. But as I got older and more mature, man, it got to be just a really great read right there. So those two, and then Damon Lindelof, he's a television writer for Lost and The Leftovers, and he recently did like the Watchmen, HBO series and everything. So he's a really great influence on it's more contemporary, writers and everything. So those are like my big three as far as like writer and creator of content.
So if there was you said Watchmen, and you said a few other ones, is there one that's just your absolute favorite, even though you got a lot of inspiration from Watchmen and the Batman series and things like that by Frank Miller? Was there one, even when you were younger, like you said, your dad handed you one when you were 5? Was there one that just stuck with you from 5 until now? Like, is there like, this is my favorite, it's my hardcore, it's my go-to?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff I used to read that have lasted to me. I'm thinking right off the bat, John Byrne's Man of Steel. That miniseries, when right after Crisis of Infinite Earth ended, the Man of Steel series, that was a really a game changer as far as me liking actually Superman. Because I wasn't a real big Superman fan before him, but John Byrne, in his hands, it actually made me a good Superman fan.
It's the long hair,
and then
right?
Yep,
long hair.
Yep. And then David Mazzucchelli and Frank Miller's Batman Year One was a really big thing that stuck with me for a while, because I've never seen Batman drawn in that type of aspect. I mean, right before then, you had like comic books weren't as mature as we talked about and everything, but the Batman Year One, especially David Mazzucchelli's artwork, made Batman so much more grounded, made it so much more realistic. I'd never seen Batman drawn like that, and that was one that was really stuck with me a whole life. Basically, I guess the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths extended stuff was a big influence, because it changed the way DC did comic characters, and just reinvented a lot of their main characters were like Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman and everything. So off the bat, that's what I'm thinking about. Secret Wars over at Marvel. That was the Marvel superhero Secret Wars series and everything, because I used to play with like a lot of the toys and stuff. So the comic fell right in, right into my hands and stuff is like a really good thing. Man, that's a good question there.
It's sometimes hard to find just one favorite, because so many different things reflect different aspects of your taste, different aspects of your personality. And there's so much that can be had. Taking your interpretation, your story, is not what I would call, from let's say 20 years ago, not traditional comic book fare, not what you would think of as the tights and spandex and the cape kind of thing. It's intended to tell a story that seems to be more grounded in reality and psychology and interpersonal relationships and history. And that's the thing that got me, that kind of piqued my interest, that historical aspect. What is your goal in this story about presenting history? How are you going to try and weave that into your tale?
So I'm a big superhero fan. But that was, like I said, in my DNA and everything. But I've gotten a lot older, a lot more mature in my taste and everything. And while I love superhero, concepts and stuff, I felt that I wanted to create something outside of that, that genre, if you want to call it, and create something more grounded is such a like a overused term and everything, but it is what it is. I wanted to make something sci-fi, because I love time travel. I love
maybe relatable
characters. Yeah, relatable. Yeah, there you go. Exactly, relatable. And for something that for people who aren't really into comics, they can actually come on board and actually read my stuff and not see the confusion of different panels and different artwork and everything, overlapping panels and stuff. While I do like that stuff, I think it's really confusing for people who are really trying to get into comics, to try to understand exactly where to follow, the different, the story, within like on a page and everything. Because comics nowadays, to me, especially Marvel and DC, they do a lot. A lot of the artwork is great, but they do a lot of action and stuff as far as overlapping panels that is just, to me, just confusing to new readers. And I wanted to make my comic more palatable to like new readers and people who actually just getting into like the genre. So that's why my influence, as far as like the 9-panel setup, if you check my comic out, the 9-panel setup, and more like the more traditional type of setup for my comic was the more as you say, relatable thing for people who are just getting into that type of thing. Yeah.
So okay, when you were coming up with the design, did you have anything that you go, it's like, oh, that would lend itself really well? What was your first? Okay, let me rephrase that, because I realize at the moment that the two sides of my brain are not cooperating at the moment. Is there a historical period that you just immediately, okay, that is the first place that I want to go to?
Yeah, and you asked that question before, just to, go back to that. I'm using the time travel aspects as like the I guess the MacGuffin, the gimmick or whatever, to put these characters in the situations just like how they did in Quantum Leap, to put these characters in the situation where I can tell like I could tell stories about that are either of interest, of different historical aspects where people didn't realize things like this have actually happened, and using these characters and their perspectives on their lives and everything to really make more of an understanding of how people were in certain time periods and everything. So, each time period that they end up going into, they'll have to react in a certain way. They'll have to be a certain way. And the characters that are already in that time period are going to react to them, in a different type of way, from that period. Just like, with Sam Beckett and Quantum Leap, he had to adjust, and actually go with like the flow and everything. Exactly. It go with the flow for that period until he actually got into a situation where he found out, okay, what am I here for? What I need to resolve and everything. And my characters, they're not always going to be resolving certain things in a period, but they are going to be learning themselves. And the characters that are in those periods are going to be learning things from them. But also the audience, to me, is going to be learning something from all the characters, from the time periods. Like if you didn't really know that things that have happened to certain people in a certain period that you're now going to know. And through the education of my comic, hopefully people can be more enlightened through the aspect of entertainment, through science fiction and everything.
And I think Ken was more asking also, when you look at the historical time period, is there a specific period? Like, I'm a huge like World War II era history nut. Like, if you give me some type of presentation on that, I love learning about what people had to go through in that time frame, whether it was here, whether it was in Europe, whether it was in Asia. That stuff just boggles my mind. But is there a specific time frame for you, 1800s, 1700s? You're like, man, I'm really interested in that history segment in general.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm like really interested in like the what happened during the Salem witch trials and stuff. why they were doing those things to like all those people when in reality nothing was really going on. I'm interested on how people reacted to that, and I'm putting my characters into situations where they'll have to deal with certain things too, because it's sort of like witchcraft or magic or whatever. And because my situation that I've had these characters in, where the world that they're living in, people casually just disappear, and there's no rhyme or reason. There's no cause, no type of like closure. This is another element that's added on to like how the politics and like how religion, how culture, through these different time periods that they're going to also have to deal with and everything. So you have this phenomenon that doesn't happen in real life that's happening in my world. I call it evanescence and everything. So in my world of evanescence, while I am going through these different time periods, there is still a supernatural or outlying phenomena that's happening that these characters that everyone is still going to have to deal with, along with like the daily politics, religion, culture and everything.
Although I have to admit, when I was looking through the first issue, because of that particular title for it, I was searching for Amy Lee to be the bad guy. And nowhere to be found.
Yeah, when he said that, I was like, "Oh, that's right."
One of my favorite singers.
So, what do you envision for this run? How long do you think that it will take you to tell this story completely, or is it one of those open-ended things that you feel that you could continue to tell as long as people want to keep reading the stories?
So that's a really good question. So I'm thinking off the bat like 24 issues, but in the same aspect, while I do have an ending in mind on how I wanted to go about, if the world is built as if I can continue telling stories as long as the world is, So while it may end with these group of characters that I start with and everything, I could end up still telling stories from another aspect in the same world that's totally different from what my main characters are actually going through. So the world is built for, a lot of stories to be told. And it doesn't matter if I'm telling them with like, my starting crew, it doesn't have to completely end that way. Or if I just leave it in the hands of someone else that wants to tell like, stories from our world and everything, it leaves like it leaves like a lot of possibilities.
Okay. Something not related to what we've just been talking to. I love doing that. You had mentioned some of your favorite comics, and we're in this era now where a lot of these things are coming to life. There's a lot of thought that the Secret Wars, it might be where Marvel's heading with their current iteration of all their movies. And DC has their ups and downs, and arguably their animated features are far superior than their live action ones in a lot of senses. Yes. I guess the question is, in general, overall, what are your thoughts on, these last 10, 15 years of all these things kind of coming to a screen, whether it's a big screen or a small screen, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent? And then a side specific question, since we talked about Batman a little bit, have you seen the new movie, The Batman?
Great question, Richard. Yes, I have seen The Batman, and at the movie theater, I thought it was a really, really good movie. When I seen it the second time on HBO Max, I actually fell asleep while watching it. I don't know why. It's a long movie. But I'm glad the movie featured Batman's detective skills, because that's something that we haven't gotten, with the actual Batman, character and everything. So they have a lot of ways they can go with it, and I'm happy with the way they began. Like, this Batman, I thought it could have been a little shorter, but it's a solid Batman movie. I'm not mad at it and everything. Now, as far as like how the last 10 to 15 years, this stuff is coming to the screen, it's been the most glorious thing I've ever had happen in my lifetime. Because, Rich, I grew up on this stuff. It was my dream to have, see my favorite characters and favorite, superheroes and stuff right up on screen and everything. So as an adult, it's like a dream come true. When the first Avengers movie came out, I'm ashamed to say it, but I mean, the reality is what it is. I was like, I hope if I have to die, I hope it's after. It can't be before the Avengers movie comes out, the first Avengers movie, because I never seen anything like that, with like characters coming from different franchises crossing over into something whole. That was something that's never happened in the history of movies, and for that to continue on for these past few years and everything, it's been the best thing that's happening. I'm like a hardcore MCU fan. I love DC stuff, even though they could be done a lot better, but they still, managed to put some good quality stuff on the screen. It's been a great ride, and I hope it doesn't end anytime soon.
Yeah, no doubt about that. If you'd have told 13-year-old me that I would get a chance to see Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet on a big screen, and I wouldn't be the only one in the theater, and it would be really good, and everybody would cheer, I said, You're lying. There's no chance. It's not going to happen.
No.
Well, I'll even go back, steps before that. I used to work we've talked about it on the podcast. I used to run movie theaters. So like I worked at movie theaters when the first set of the X-Men movies came out. And growing up, I was always a huge X-Men family. Like that was my favorite. And to see them come to the big screen, to me was a big deal. Right.
Yeah.
And they were kind of the precursor, that and Blade, I guess you could say, were kind of the precursor to what we're really seeing now. And it was, I think, a bigger deal looking back on it, knowing the popularity of everything that was going on right now. So yeah, huge shift in how people consume things, for sure.
Yeah, it's like what I look at it as chasing like a high. So I'm like I said, when Blade came out, I sort of like pass it off as like one of those other movies that you really shouldn't pay attention to. And then I didn't go see it in the theaters when it came out. I caught it when it came on, like I guess on TV or what have you. Found out it was a really good movie, and then I think X-Men came out after that, and then Spider-Man came out after that. That was really a game changer when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came out. And I'm thinking like, oh wow, they're really doing it. They're really bringing my favorite characters to like the screen and everything. X-Men, Spider-Man, and then they had like Hollywood started believing in these characters, and then Marvel, MCU ended up taking over and everything, and then the history was made there. But as Kim was saying, you go back to young me, and you tell young me that, okay, you know, these things were going to be happening in the future and stuff, I would have never believed it, because I've grown up in school, you know, going to school, and was told that comic books were like corny, you know, you were not popular, you know, if you read comics and stuff. None of the stuff that you're going to is, you know, reading is going to amount to anything and everything. So why are you so much into that stuff? But, you know, I was still into it, deep into it. Now look where it's at now. Nerd culture is like the culture, you know. It's like the dominant culture now. The Revenge of the Nerds came true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Except for the problematic portions of the film, we're going to ignore that part. But okay. So often when we talk to actors and such on the show, we ask a specific question. We're going to twist that question just a little bit. And usually we ask an actor, well, if you had a chance to play any comic book character, who would you play in a film? So going from a writer's standpoint, if you had the chance to write any comic book character into a big screen film, who would it be?
Any comic book character into a big screen? Oh man. Any comic book character? See, that's a hard one, Ken. I mean, you stumped me on that one. You know, I don't know why I'm just thinking, and this is not, and this is not so much comic book, but I've been a Knight Rider fan, like, you know, for so long, and I'm heavy into like Kid Michael Knight and everything. I would love to take a crack at that. You know, either make that into like a solid movie, or just, you know, make it into like a wholly different TV show, something different from what all the different reboots that they tried and everything. So I got like a few ideas for that. Just to throw it, because that was just floating in my mind for whatever reason from that question. I don't know why I say would think like Batman, but Batman has been done so many times over. I feel that, you know, I could put my 2 cents into it. You know, I do have some few ideas with that. So if I was to think about, like, you know, a character, I guess Batman. Maybe it may be cliche.
Hey, there's no wrong answer. It's all about where the love is.
And a lot of times, you know, the best part of a superhero story is actually the bad guy. So it might be more of, okay, if we did Batman, who would the bad guy be that we haven't seen on screen before, or even an offshoot? We've really never seen a good Robin.
No,
we've definitely not seen Nightwing at all. Like that would be the direction I'd like to. That's just so hard to develop, but you already have to have an existing system where Robin, either you're doing Robin who's been trained and he's just been doing things for a while, so you're skipping a whole bunch of stuff, or you're having a Robin that's really old and is in, you know, ready to leave the nest in a certain sense, and then you have to have, like, you're missing all this transitional. So it'd be a hard set of characters to do.
No, do it.
Words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I mean, that's it right there.
Middle of it, flashbacks. All you get with the flash, because you got to have the flashbacks, right? Flashbacks to Batman. You never see Batman in whole. You see like his leg, his hand, because you're a little kid. You never get anything. There's some big battle. You see a bit of the cape, and it's always some condescending. It's like, you can do better. Yeah. Just that's all you get with the flashbacks, and that's what leads him to be who he is. And it's like Nightwing, but what if he wasn't successful? He hangs out in like bars and he tries to pick fights with people that are picking on people, and, you know, he's half drunk when it happens, and that could be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah,
only if Starfire was there.
I would probably take a crack at Fantastic Four, and do it. If they're going to bring them back into the MCU, I would start them back in the 60s, you know, just do a 60s movie, you know, in that time period. Now, if they need to jump them into like the 21st century, like how they did Steve Rogers, that's a possibility. But I think I would take them back to the 60s and just have fun with it.
That would be a lot
something different.
Really retro.
Mm-hmm.
Have some really awful, cheesy looking, their little flying vehicle that merges together.
Yep.
He's a genius. I've been developing this machine that can cook your food. It's the size of a refrigerator. It's like, yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, just go bonkers off the wall. Have super fun with it.
Oh man. Well, I gotta say, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you on the show here. To get your comic right now, they can just go onto your website, right? And just get a copy of it there.
Just go to themeofthieves.com until we get it out in the store. So you'll get an exclusive copy. And, you know, depending on when you order it, I can possibly sign it for you as well. So, so just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, you could go right onto the website, themeofthieves.com, and, you know, purchase my stuff. Of course, that you can follow me on, you know, social media, at Dog Pound Brown, DAWGPOUNDBROWN, Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. And I host a, Star Wars podcast every Wednesday at 10 p.m. We'll be actually getting into like this Obi-Wan, you know, series coming up here next week. And right now we're like reviewing like Darth Vader comics and everything, you know, from like the Marvel, you know, and stuff. But every Wednesday it's called Carbonite Bound and BS. I got my cohorts, you know, Steel City and Ken and T Mitch and everything on the Nerdcyclopedia YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
Well, definitely watch out for this guy. This is a really fun story. If you want a chance to get into something without having to have any baggage of pre-existing universe, just have fresh story, this is a great opportunity to do so. Take a look at this, check it out, support your smaller local creators. This is a great way to do it. Thank you again, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Just one more plug and everything. You know, if like you were saying before, if you're not into superheroes but want to read some good sci-fi time traveling stuff, my stuff is about two teens and a mysterious being. They're traveling through time to try to solve a mystery of why people are disappearing in the present. So imagine if people just randomly disappear. Like I said before, it's been happening since the 1700s. No closure, but it's been happening since the 1700s all the way up to like present. And I'm dealing with like culture, politics, and religion. That's what the Theme of Thieves is about.
That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, very good.
And that's where the music fades. How'd that go for you? Is that good?
Oh, that was good. I sorry, I had to I didn't even explain like the thing of the story and everything, even though you asked the questions and stuff. So just wanted to get that little plug in.
well, maybe we'll get you back on again. We'll talk about it more because we love just geeking out with people and
oh yeah, it was a fun conversation. I loved it.
Episode 3 hits the shelves.
Yeah, that's the perfect timing. Do you know when you're going to do the Kickstarter for the 3rd issue?
Yeah, it'll probably be sometime in September, October. I'm thinking more or less October-ish and everything. So yeah, you'll be hearing from me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on again because like I said, I love supporting the local creators. That's the thing that's just awesome. We talked to Stuart Sager here just a couple of weeks ago, one of our favorite kind of more local artists. And he's
from Indy.
Yeah. So just seeing that is the fun part for me.
Yeah, I got to get out to one of you guys' cons and everything. I've heard some good things about your area.
So if you want to go to Indy, PopCon is a good one. Indy PopCon.
Okay.
There are some smaller local cons that if you're trying to be more cost effective that you can get into. If you want to go to the biggest one, that's going to be Gen Con each year.
Gen Con, okay.
Technically a gaming convention, board games, card games, things like that. But if you want the widest group of people to expose your stuff to, that's where you want to go because they take. Have you been to Indianapolis's convention center before?
No, I've been to Indianapolis, but not their convention center.
Okay. So basically where the stadium is, where the football games happens, attached right to the convention center. But when Gen Con occurs, it not only takes over the entire convention center, which let's compare it to Cleveland Convention Center.
Okay.
The Indianapolis Convention Center is approximately probably 5 times larger than the Cleveland Convention Center. And it takes over all of that. It takes over the stadium. It takes over all of the hotels connected to it.
Oh,
It
wow.
takes basically anything within half a mile of downtown is Gen Con.
Huh. Okay.
So like triple digits, tens of thousands of people that are streaming through that. So booth space, a lot of times, people like group together to kind of share some booth space cost, but if you want to really get your stuff out there and see a bunch of people, that's a good convention to do it.